Art collector, cookbook writer, and horror icon Vincent Price is most famous for his hammy villain roles. But Price is a complex figure with a long history in horror cinema who deserves closer insight. Born in St. Louis at the turn of the century, Price was comfortably rich growing up. A brief stint at Yale, where Price gained an art history degree, was followed by studying in London, where he discovered his true love, acting. He made a name for himself in the original stage run of Gaslight, but was passed over for the film adaptation. After starring in a number of smaller screen roles, including alongside Basil Rathbone and Boris Karloff in Tower of London, Price's star-making screen role was House of Wax, a surprise smash hit 3D film. The film not only made a star of Price, but also kickstarted the languishing horror genre. After starring in a string of genre films, Price landed another hit in House on Haunted Hill. This classic horror perfectly skirts the line between comedy and terror, acknowledging the implausibility of its worst features while producing some surprisingly chilling imagery. In the lead role, Price shines as Frederick Lauren, debuting his iconic approach to horror. He moves through the film as if outside his role, observing the filmic proceedings from a distance and commenting on them to the audience with ever so sly a nudge and a wink. Price joined into a partnership with future American schlock legend Roger Corman to make House of Usher. Corman impressed Price with his methodical, psychological approach to Poe. Price regarded Poe highly and admired screenwriter Richard Matheson's reliance on complex emotional backgrounds for characters. In her biography of her father, Victoria Price writes that he had an affinity with Poe's characters. He was attracted to the romantic ethos of these gothic tales, in which hypersensitive men whose dark heritage combined with their refined sensibilities doomed them to torment as outsiders. House of Usher is an excellent film, one that holds up as one of the best Poe adaptations and a stunning landmark in horror in its own right. In light of its runaway success, the trio were hired to create a sequel, and eventually 7 films would be produced in this loose series. Roger Corman and Vincent Price were central throughout. In reference to his Poe films, Corman remarks, "Horror, to a large extent, has to do with loss of control. There's crude horror, which is just brutality, but there is more subtle horror, which represents a higher intelligence, a higher sensitivity, a mysticism which can take over." I felt Vincent was very good at portraying that. Being a cultured man, he was able to portray a person of intelligence, of sensitivity carried beyond obsession. After the Corman Poe films, Price appears to fall into a rut, often playing characters who are in some sense or another a pastiche of his public image. There are exceptions, most notably Witchfinder General, where Price turns in a chilling performance as the tyrannical witch hunter Matthew Hopkins. With no actual witches in sight, the film's villains are all too human, and Price's witch hunter is cold, methodical, and portrayed with a scholarly psychological accuracy. This isn't how most people remember Vincent Price. On screen, he's most well known for his hammier performances, such as the titular character in The Abominable Dr. Phibes, a riotous comedy where Price speaks through a gramophone for the duration of the movie and mostly acts with his eyebrows. This film, and others like it, have given rise to a perception of Price in the public consciousness that sees him as a sort of living cartoon, a perception which Price himself was happy to encourage. Off-screen, Price is a more complex figure to understand. Victoria Price says that her father understood that in order to succeed in Hollywood, you have to be good copy. Accordingly, in taking each event of his life and transforming it into a story, he was also crafting a good read in a publicity column, a hearty laugh at a cocktail party, a riveting anecdote for an interview. We know that he was a bon vivant, famous for being an excellent dinner guest, as well as a respected art expert. He was also committed to political causes, from raising money to benefit victims of the Spanish Civil War as a very young man, to being a proud public voice in favour of gay rights throughout the 1970s and beyond.
Here in the United States, perhaps more than ever before, we must learn to recognize the poison of prejudice and to discover the antidote to its dangerous effects.
He also seems to have been a difficult man in many ways. Motivated by a relentless work ethic evident in the sheer volume of his films, he was absent from his children's lives for long periods of time, often drank heavily, and in private could be cutting and cruel. Certainly his desire to project a flawless public image of a scholar and a gentleman caused problems in his private life. Intimacy seemed to demand an honesty of which he felt incapable. Even as he tried to love, he was never sure that he could succeed. Despite his personal problems, Price engendered a great deal of love from the film community and audiences alike. And watching his hammy, overblown, winking performances, it's not hard to see why. Take Theatre of Blood, where Vincent Price plays a Shakespearean actor back from the grave to take revenge on his harshest critics. The literary allusions in the film would certainly have been an enticement to Price, even if some are pretty tenuous. Throughout the film, Price jokes about in just such a way as to bring the audience in on the joke, while maintaining a strong character motivation which drives the film. Unlike Dr. Phibes, his thespian is a believable, motivated character, not merely a pastiche or a cipher for the film's action. And unlike Witchfinder General, the tone is light and the horror is gaudy. But the magic of the film is simply that every scene with Price in it feels like a drink with an intimate friend, an evening replete with bawdy laughter underlined by mutual respect. Always at the forefront of new developments in film and an early adopter of television, Price's recognition grew even as his film work stalled in later life. He toured a one-man show as Oscar Wilde in 200 cities and presented the anthology series Mystery on PBS for years. From featuring in one of the biggest pop singles of all time to cameoing in a major film from an up-and-coming young director, Price guaranteed his legacy. His memory continues to live on in references across film and television.
Hello, this is Vincent Price.
Oh, it's Vincent Price. I thought he was dead.
You should know the grave could never tame me.
In 1993, on the 25th of October, at the age of 82, Price died in Los Angeles. So this Halloween, sit down, watch one of his classic movies, and raise a glass in honour of the late, great Vincent Price.